It's been an eventful week in the Occupy Wall Street camp, America. I'll go from New York to California, and across the U.S., we have handpicked a few stories from last week that turned heads, captured imaginations, and made headlines. D17 sees the 99% lock horns with the 1% to reoccupy Wall Street. The trial of Bradley Manning finally gets underway. The veterans get their boots on the ground and the protesters can't. And are saying it's section with OWS organizers out on the Occupy trail.
I had to sit back and kind of be humbled by the magic that was in the air at the plaza.
D17, shorthand for December 17th, marking the third month of Occupy Wall Street. Reoccupy was the call to participants across the nation, including New York City, where it all began. The impetus of D17 for OWS was to secure a new place to gather, having been brutally evicted from Zuccotti Park a month before. They had been negotiating with no success for sanctuary in use of a vacant lot owned by Trinity Church. Protesters peacefully gathered in a celebratory holiday mood at Dort Park at 6th Avenue and Canal Street, bringing their own wooden ladder to scale the chain-link fence surrounding the lot. Controlled chaos reigned as occupiers from all walks of life scaled the fence, filmed by dozens of citizen reporters and police from atop a van. Scenes from historic resistance movements mingled with comical touches as a last-ditch attempt to gain assistance from a traditional source of sanctuary was made. Then the NYPD moved in. The jovial atmosphere changed in a heartbeat and 50 arrests were made. The crowd outside the fence was not cowed, from a tiny young woman spiritedly standing up to a cop to a passionate young man exhorting the long line of riot police to join the 99%. The underdog spirit of American patriots was evident in a ragtag group of young people defiantly defending their constitutional rights, even as they were kettled on the opposite sidewalk.
Why did you attack women for some kind of $50 or $100 trespassing fine? You attack them with potentially lethal force. You grab them by the hair, you rake their face across the goddamn pavement like some kind of big hot dog on WWF wrestling.
Protesters formed into a march, repeatedly harassed by police, some arrested for marching instead of walking. Then they broke up into smaller guerrilla-style groups, making their way helter-skelter to Times Square for a spontaneous gathering on one of the busiest shopping nights of the year. They were flanked by enormous police manpower, even horsepower, and met with low-intensity warfare tactics as they chanted, "This is what a police state looks like." Massing in Times Square, surrounded by shoppers and tourists, the occupiers then started the famous mic check.
Mic check! The police have used electrical tape to conceal their badge numbers.
American patriots shouting testaments beginning with "I occupy because," sounding the alarm for all to hear that economic inequality, incessant warfare, corporate-owned politicians, and denial of constitutionally guaranteed rights must not, will not stand.
I occupy because I want a future. I don't want to hate anybody anymore. I believe that we need to be proud of America. Because I believe that this world can be so much better, so much more than any of us have ever dreamed. Thank you.
I guess my first question is a question I've been asking everyone, and Richard has articulated something nicely along these lines. Are we talking about reform, or are we talking about revolution?
Well, I'll answer you again in this way. I just saw a quote. Those who make peaceful transition, evolution, if you will, difficult, they make revolution necessary. And I saw another quote this morning that the more American people have our rights eroded, the more people wake up to the realization that the America we thought we were inhabiting no longer exists. And there are segments of the society that understood that a long, long time ago. But the more people wake up into the consciousness of that, you are forcing people to realize that there's only one answer. And so you hear the term bandied about among Occupy Wall Street about anarchy. And I've often said that it's not Occupy Wall Street that's making anarchy a real reality here. It is the government of the United States of America, by taking away the very rights that are enshrined in the sacred document called Constitution, that are forcing the American people to no other choice, because we're now all subject to mass arrest. You're subject to mass arrest for making this documentary.
You talk about the sacred document of the Constitution. What do you say to people who might say that the Constitution was put in place to protect rich white landowners?
Nevertheless, it was, in fact, that. As a child of slaves, I certainly can concur with that. However, it has been the document that has allowed a nation to develop and form. And if, as Martin Luther King said, if America would have lived up to the true meaning of her creed, absent the racist undertones, if you just take the document as it is and enshrine those rights and afforded citizens those rights, we wouldn't be dealing with what we're talking about right now. Occupy Wall Street wouldn't be necessary.
Happy birthday to us! Happy birthday to you!
The Occupy protesters sing Happy Birthday to Bradley Manning on December 17th. A young man many Americans consider a hero of the Iraq War was finally admitted an Article 32 hearing session at Fort Meade in Maryland on December 16th. After over 400 days in jail, much of it in solitary confinement. Manning made history after making documents on U.S. sanctions in Iraq and Washington's diplomatic cables available to the WikiLeaks website. Perhaps one of the most lasting images has been that of a U.S. helicopter gunship killing a group of unarmed Iraqi men in Baghdad. Some of the men turn out to be Reuters journalists, and as the attacking helicopter's footage clearly demonstrated, none carried weapons.
Clear. Clear.
Washington charged in July 2010 that Private Bradley Manning had transferred classified data onto his personal computer and communicated national defense information to an unauthorized source. An additional 22 charges were prepared, including aiding the enemy, a capital offense. On July 29, 2010, Manning was moved to the Marine Corps base, Quantico, Virginia. This was in effect solitary confinement in a 6 by 12 feet cell with no window. Amnesty International called the conditions harsh and punitive. In April 2011, 295 legal scholars and philosophers signed a letter saying the conditions Manning experienced amounted to a violation of the U.S. Constitution. Later that month, the Pentagon transferred Manning to a medium security facility in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Bradley Manning is accused of making public information that helped bring the Iraq War to an end by motivating the Iraqi government to deny future immunity to U.S. troops, helped inspire the Arab Spring by exposing Tunisian and Egyptian governments' abuses, exposed the U.S. State Department's attempts to keep European countries from prosecuting U.S. officials who had engaged in kidnapping, torture, and other crimes, and revealed to Americans government actions which had not been reported on by corporate media.
Well, it is disheartening and disillusioning about
The U.S. has not
fellow
seen an act of
countrymen.
conscience on this level since Daniel Ellsberg and the Pentagon Papers.
Believe in torture. I think.
If Manning was WikiLeaks' source, it is evident that he chose to follow the oath he swore to preserve and protect the Constitution of the U.S. by informing the public about official crimes. There would be no Occupy, no global awakening on the scale we were witnessing were it not for him. Occupy Wall Street owes a huge debt to Bradley Manning, said Melanie Butler from Code Pink, Women for Peace and Occupy Wall Street. He is a hero of our generation, and we are honored to stand in solidarity with him. History has vindicated Ellsberg. It will do the same for Manning.
Anyone else have any opinions about reform or revolution?
I think we are reforming to a revolution. I think we're going to take small steps to change things in a big way, and I think it's going to take a little bit of time, but I'm confident that we're going to do it.
Doing the Russian stuff that started to happen, there's a slogan that came up called revolution, not evolution, not revolution. And I feel that, you know, it's going to be reform, revolution, and evolution. You know, we finally have to take that step to evolution, because there have been, you know, populist movements throughout history that's almost the same exact way of this bottom-up populist movements. You know, we go to the English peasants and fight, you know, King Richard. You know, you go all the way, all these different moments that's similar to this. But for us to make a difference, it has to be an evolution, and we have the capabilities to do that if we just, you know, realize the steps of reform, and then realize the step of revolution, and then realize what the steps for us to go to evolution. That can take 50 years, 20 years, but as long as everyone is long haul and know that this is a struggle, you know, a global struggle, you know, that's that Occupy movement is only like the first step. The next movement might be a totally different name, you know, but this is a good movement after like 40 years of counter-revolution. You know, finally people are waking up, like Richard said, you know, and it's a growing consciousness, collective consciousness.
I think that we're to some degree on a different plane. Like when this kind of started, we had a library and we had people printing things up, and I wanted to, you know, I'm a Marxist, I'm on the left of this. I'm absolutely on the radical left of Occupy Wall Street. And I wanted to go make a whole bunch of copies of Rosa Luxemburg's Reform or Revolution, because I thought that that's an interesting conversation to have. But to me, then I came back, I had to sit back and kind of be humbled by the magic that was in the air at the plaza, in Liberty Plaza. And the reality of what we were doing wasn't, we never came up with reform demands. We also never said, I mean, there are a lot of anti-capitalists, there's a lot of people who have had really ingrained experiences with capitalism and the police state over the span of their lives that don't see any way that you can have a simple reform. But you know, like, this is not a revolutionary movement either. It's important that maybe in the future it might be, but it's not at this present time. To me, this is a radical experiment in democracy. And as such, it is, in Egypt, I had friends who went to Egypt about 7 years ago to study the democracy movement there, the movement against the military regimes. These were Pakistani friends of mine. And they came back saying the Egyptian people, they're complicit in their system that is dominating over them. There is no real attempt or desire for people to stand up, and they are used to the police state, they're used to the level of employment, the level of social services, and there's no longer a desire for them to see change and to see a better society. That was proven wrong, clearly. Something broke that ice. Something broke that wall that stood between the Egyptians and the potential of what they can be and what kind of society that they can create with a collective sense of creativity and a collective sense of intent. So I think that we live in a police state too. I think that that's been around for long before I was born. The prison population started rising during the Civil Rights Movement, and those were political prisoners. You know, I mean, these things are very clear. That came after Jim Crow and segregation, which came after the reaction against Reconstruction, which came after slavery. This has always been a police state, and before that it was a slave state. So I think that there's a recession and there's other issues, but really for us, I think that we're breaking through the apathy, we're breaking through the cynicism, we're breaking through the sense that, you know what, we can trust the state or beg the state to make solutions for us, and if they don't make solutions, we're just going to keep gritting on. Because when 20 million people die last year of starvation, men, women, and children across the planet, and that is a normal number, when we have massive unemployment in the streets of the Bronx and Brooklyn, and when we have more homeless, more homes that are empty and owned by banks than we have homeless people, and we could actually house the millions of homeless people we have in this country. People, you know, there is a sense that, you know what, if we had a little creativity and a little bit of drive, we could do it. Now we're at that point. We are not hopeless anymore. We're ready to fight. So I think it transcends reform and revolution. I don't think that I would love to have that conversation all the time, every day at this thing, and say, no, but the real truth is we need revolution against, you know, the class system and white supremacy and patriarchy. But that's not necessarily the conversation that needs to be had right now. I think that it's kind of beautiful what we're at, where we are at, right?
Could I respond? I mean, it's kind of with your question, but a little bit different. Yesterday in Think Tank, someone came up and we were talking about what's coming up next for Occupy. And they brought up the point that the Arab Spring, I think we can all agree, did start us off and gave us the realization that we can make these changes. But they had one goal in mind, to oust Mubarak. Or, well, in Egypt, they had one goal in mind, to oust Mubarak. Now he's gone, but his military regime is still in power. And even though there are still some activists out there trying to stop it, the same activists that were there when Mubarak was in power are now ripping up the flyers and saying, oh, we've done what we needed to. I think it's great that we've learned off of that we have all these different objectives and goals that we're going after. Someone made the comment that, you know, we're like an octopus. We've got many different tentacles. And so...
As opposed to the vampire squid of Goldman Sachs.
Exactly. we've got many different tentacles, and even though we may accomplish one goal or we may not accomplish another goal, we're still going after those goals one after another, and our momentum will not fall because we have so many different intellectual and important issues that we're going after.
We are the 99%! We swore to protect and defend! We swore to protect and defend! The Constitution of! The Constitution of! The United States of America! The United States of America!
American military veterans have been in the vanguard of the OWS movement since its inception. U.S. corporate media have portrayed occupiers as a shifting, shapeless mob of hippies and society's dregs, shying away from reporting the fact that participants come from all walks of life. Some question how active duty and veteran men and women could become involved. Their answer is, how could we not? Iraq Veterans Against the War has issued a statement of solidarity with the 99%. The 1% is profiting from our sacrifices. Our nation's leaders have betrayed us. We have been asked to risk our lives and mental health for the defense of our country and the well-being of foreign allies. The causes for military conflict have proven false while corporations profit. The military-industrial complex continues to grow in wealth while the rest of the world pays for it in dollars and blood. Gulf War II vets, those on active duty since 2001, face high rates of unemployment. The youngest age bracket, 18 to 24, had a 30.4% jobless rate in October 2011. A substantial increase from the 18.4% last year. Black veterans in the same age group are jobless to the tune of 48%. Some estimates peg the number of homeless veterans at close to 300,000. Veterans are struggling with untreated war-related conditions, waiting in line for assistance from the VA, home foreclosures, divorce rates, and suicides at an all-time high. These men and women were told that they fought overseas for human rights and democratic freedoms. Yet they witnessed fellow citizens denied constitutionally granted freedoms here at home.
Get her!
Brutalized by police. So they stand with the 99%.
Do anything!
I'm a two-time Iraq War veteran!
I'm a two-time Iraq War veteran!
And this is the only occupation!
And this is the only occupation!
That I believe in!
That I believe in!
Many say this stand is the first time they felt they were actually serving their country, keeping the oath they've made to defend the Constitution. One popular sign sums it up. Second time I fought for my country. First time I've known my enemy.
I'll support my colleagues and comrades here in this way, but I'll take it a step further. I've often asked the question of us as a movement that there's a time coming when we must really consider what we're really up against. and that the force that we're up against does not intend to cede its power. They don't intend to wake up one day and have a conscience and realize that it's wrong to allow 20 million people to die on the planet, that it's wrong to do the kinds of things that have been done to us, that it's wrong to poison the water, poison the air, poison the planet, poison the food supply. They're not going to wake up one day and realize. So that eventually Occupy Wall Street, as she evolves, is going to have to take on mass and size. And at some point, the pushback from the global elites will force something, whatever name you want to give that. But it will force that, because they're not going to just wake up one day and change the way they've been doing this, because there's an agenda here. And when you look at what's going on recently in Italy, in Greece, when you look at what's happening in Europe right now, where bankers, you have literal coups going on in those countries, where these banks have superimposed their will on the people and are applying austerity measures on citizens. And now the citizens have no choice but to take to the streets and to literally revolt. So absent, yes, I like the terminology of evolution, but I would suggest that evolution is on the side of the citizenry. Nevertheless, the masters who have subjected us to this kind of behavior, they are only going to respond to one thing, and it's not going to be found at the voting booth.
Are you talking about a violence versus non-violence argument?
No, that's not what I'm saying. Okay. And again, I've often said in our think tanks that I always knew there would be violence in this movement, but I never thought it would be perpetrated on our side. If you look at the police response to us, their response to us has been violent. And I'm simply saying that when you look at NDAA, which just passed the House, the House and the Senate, when you look at the president getting ready to sign martial law into law here, what else do we expect when we go out on the streets now and we're literally subject to being carted off, taken to black sites? What do you think is going to happen? What kind of response have we gotten from the police? What can we expect from the military? What can we expect from the global elites as what did they experience in Egypt when they were just protesting for their rights? How did the military respond there? How are they going to respond to us? We don't have any weapons. We're peaceful protesters. Our weapons are signs. Is it? Our weapons, we were occupying a park, literally with signs. If we were homeless and bums and drug addicts, why are you worried about that? Why is every city moving to get rid of Occupy Wall Street protesters under the guise of safety and security, when these are some of the most violent and dangerous cities on the planet, but they didn't remove these mayors for a failure to properly police their cities and cut down on murders. Right across the water from us in New Jersey, Camden, New Jersey was just named the most dangerous city in America. I don't hear anybody going over there to say, let's bring the police over there.
Well, and there were also those reports of when we had the encampment of police officers going to troubled homeless people and mentally disabled people who were causing problems that they got called to and said, we'll leave you alone if you go to Sakati. I mean, that's another form of violence perpetrated on us. They are sending it so that it is unsafe, so that they can make it unsafe and so they can destroy it, and that's what they did.